Welcome back to the Contract Podcast. Today we have a special treat. We have Miss Gwen Clopton. She is the Makerspace Library Assistant at the University City Public Library in St. Louis, Missouri. And she is really special to us here at the Contract Podcast because she was our first hostess as our little team got together, and each week we gather at the library, and we were able to just share ideas, record our podcast, and build relationships with all of you. So we're so happy to have Ms. Gwen with us today.
Thank you.
All right. So if you're following us, you remember in our last episode, we were talking about the very real challenges facing mid to later career professionals is the shifting economy. We've been talking a lot about AI, how that's shifting the workplace. Uh, we talked a little bit about retirement anxiety. I even think retirement, what, how do you spell that? Right? Um, and that identity work also, that's all wrapped up, our titles and our companies,
Mhm.
all of this, is shifting. So today I want to bring this conversation down from the research that we talked about to real life. And you are someone that we were so excited to meet and just hear your story. And I'm so excited that you're going to share your story with our listeners because you're an example of how you were able to make a real pivot. Someone who at 62 found yourself at a crossroads, but you were courageous, you're on the other side of that. You're living your best life, as you said to me once. And so let's go through that journey because I can guarantee you that there's a woman out there who's in that same boat and she's wondering, what do I do now? And you're going to give them some hope. So let's get down to it. Before getting into exactly, where you are now, tell us a little bit about your professional career. Who were you in the past before we met you at the library?
Well, I started my career out of college with a math degree in customer support. So I was on the telephone a lot for 7 years. I
Okay.
was on the telephone supporting customers, always in a software product.
Hmm.
Um, and then moved into software testing and programming. And then I ended up changing, going back to school and getting a certificate in technical writing, and then became a technical writer. And
Hmm.
that was my love. I loved
Okay.
doing that. And everything I'd done before then kind of supported that, understanding the customer,
Hmm.
getting feedback, things like that. And I was good at it. Um, so I was a technical writer, moved through a couple of different jobs, moved up in the company, became a manager. At one point, I had 8 writers working for me.
Oh, wow.
Moved into process governance, had a team under me, and and then my company was purchased, and of
Okay.
course redundancy
Hmm.
occurred, and I I was let go. So, was off for a little while, actually productive
Okay. Okay.
at home, found another job and, was keyed to be in managing a technical writing team, but that never came.
Hmm.
And, it's just there were things that happened that I never did the job I was hired to do.
Mm. Okay.
So,
That
uh,
that's yeah, that's a lot of things. I mean, you've shared some really key points that we've talked about in some of our past podcasts. One, I love that you just said, you know what, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to get some more education, right? And that is so key. Always to have that growth mindset, right?
mhm.
To constantly just have that take that control of your development, which is key. And you were the boss. You were the boss lady. I mean, you had a team and that technical field and technical writing. I admire folks. I was just working on a project with some colleagues yesterday, and we were doing some QA testing on some software or an app that we built. And I said, yeah, this is why in the past I have said to the QA team, thank you, please and thank you. Because it takes a lot of attention to detail, a lot of technical skill. So you really had a lot going on. And then another thing that really hit me as you were talking, you were hired for a job that you actually never got to do. So it was a little bit of the okey doke. How did that make you feel? How are you dealing with those emotions?
Well, I was there for 3 years. The first year, I absolutely didn't do anything, um, uh, that was associated to my career.
Hmm.
Um, but I used the other parts, I did some programming,
Okay.
and I did help navigate the migration of their knowledge base. And then I did a lot of editing. And then the next year, it started so that I would be able to do what I was hired to do, which was try to conglomerate all the different documentation that we had. Um, the only issue was is that there was a lack of support from the top down on that. I
Hmm.
would get a thumbs up, sounds good, and then crickets.
Hmm.
And that's very frustrating. And
Hmm.
after I was making goals, I was meeting with people, seeing about things, and then the second year came around, and I knew it accomplished some things, but I wanted to accomplish more, and about a few months into that, I just went, I'm done." So I started looking for another job.
Okay, good for you. So this is what we call this the contract podcast, the deals we make and those that break. It was breaking
Yeah.
pretty clearly, right, in real time for you. So you said that you were going to start looking or you started looking for another job. Can you share with us a little bit about kind of what was going on in your head? What are some of the thoughts that you had, the feelings?
Well, I knew that in the work that I did, I felt like I wasn't utilized to the best of my abilities. I felt like I had a lot to offer, but it just wasn't, no one wanted it, if
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and as I looked for another job, and that was when we were kind of coming out of COVID,
Okay.
um, it, but everybody was still kind of at home. What I found was that I never got any responses back.
Mm.
And I looked at my resume, I adjusted my resume, I looked at all those things because I was 62, and I found myself softening some of the big experience I had, taking the dates out like they tell you to
Hmm.
do, so you don't look as old. Eh, it's so strange to say that. But minimizing some experience so that at least I would get a call back because I knew if I could get in
Hmm.
or if I could have a phone call or an interview, I could do it.
Okay.
And but nothing. It was absolutely quiet for those 8 months that I was looking. And I have a wonderful husband. We started discussing, about 3 or 4 months into it, should I even stop looking and just retire.
Hmm.
And
What did
so
Okay, that's interesting because clearly, and this was something when we first met that was very clear to me, you are vibrant, super intelligent. You like to be busy and to do and to interact.
Yes.
So to feel that you have all this to give, it's like going into the dark void. I can relate to that. Um, and then your closest ally says, maybe you should just stop. How did that make you feel in that moment?
He knew how unhappy I was.
Okay,
And and it also comes down to a question of economics
sure.
because we both grew up in lower middle class, but not a lot of money, extra money to
Mm-hmm.
do
Mm-hmm.
things. And so we're both very practical and I would almost say frugal,
Mm-hmm.
but we've always stashed. Part of everything was get that 401k,
Okay.
um, you know, save if we can. But the biggest thing was throw into that 401k. And we got to this point and we just went, we need to see how much we're really spending and can we do it on one income? And so we navigated into me putting my money away and just working on his income, and after a few months, we realized we could do this,
Okay.
and that's when I decided to make the cut.
Wow. So
It
this
was
is,
very
yeah,
scary.
very, very scary. But what I loved about what you just shared, even in that fear, because that's real, right? All of us are facing a variety of fears, but you still had the wherewithal to say, and yet we have to be practical, we have to be smart, right, about this. And I love that you brought up that budgeting and the financial. I mean, we're certainly not financial advisors by any shape, form, or fashion. But one of the things that we touched on a little bit in our last podcast was about the importance of being planful, especially on the financial side, because who knows, especially in this economy, at all stages of your career,
Mhm.
anything can change just like that. And so, are you being planful? And making sure that you've set yourself up in a way that you're going to be okay. Now, maybe we're not going to the Bahamas every weekend, right?
No.
But we're going to be okay. And so, good on you for you and your husband working together and being able to do that. So you decide I'm going to be frugal. We're going to do this together. One salary, save, and yet here you are in the library. Tell us a little bit about that transition.
Well, when I I stopped working, I started doing and expanding on things that I had always been kind of a side thing. And and do you want me to mention those?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so I was a part-time beekeeper, and at the same time that I kind of stepped away from working, I had 2 friends who were looking for third partners, so I became a third partner in, a group of about 10 beehives,
Oh, wow.
and we've had a blast. Um, and also, I've been a leader of a community garden for about 10 years,
Okay.
and so just kind of giving that a little more attention than I had. But then about a year into that, um, the library approached me, Patrick, and they were working on classes for older adults through a grant and said, can we meet with you? And the whole idea was they knew me because we have a guild that meets here
Hmm.
and we do a quilt show every 2 years for a month that shows in the gallery. And so they knew me and knew how I worked and
Hmm.
that I knew people.
Hmm.
So we have this conversation about what they want to do for this class, and they think that it would be a good idea for this area. And at first, I thought, okay, they know that I know people, so I'm, writing down what their requirements are and um, going, oh, yeah, I know a person who does that and a person who does that. And their response was, no, 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 we were hoping that you would teach the class.
Ah.
And it kind of stopped me in my tracks. And, you have those 5-second processes where you just go, could wait, I could.
Yes.
Everything I wrote down, I know how to do,
Mhm.
and I know how to share that. Um, yes, I could do that. And then a new scared came in, like, oh my gosh. But, I've done lots of presentations. I've done, educational videos. I've done, all kinds of things to help people learn how to do things. And I thought, I I can do this. And went home, talked to my husband. He went, well, yeah, I told you that you could do this years ago. And fine, you were right. Um, Um, and so I started that approach that I'd
Mhm.
always done at work
Mhm.
to create, uh, created classes, created little 2-page take homes for them, um, had video set up so that I had a camera through my phone so they could see close up what I was doing. We did packets so that they would have a project and we set a pace for the class, the 8-week class. I realized, of course, into the second week that I had really overblown what I could teach them in 8 weeks. So I I reevaluated, I pulled out a couple of
Mhm.
things, and then it was actually very smooth for the rest of the time. And we ended up extending the time beyond the class so that people would come in and continue to work on their projects. And we still do that on Thursdays.
Look at you. That's fantastic. Fantastic. So I mentioned earlier that you described it once as living your best life. And I love that framing because it's specific and it's personal. So describe what that looks like on a Tuesday morning. How does your life feel now compared to when you were in those corporate days?
um, a lot of flexibility.
Hmm.
Um, I I go to work and I say good morning to the makerspace every morning.
Mm,
And and at the end of the day, I say good night, makerspace. It's been a good day. Um, eh, because it's a place of creativity, but also everything I've done up to this point professionally has built into this situation. I
mm.
get to do customer service. I get to help people. I meet new people every day, and we're here to have fun. How can that, how can it not be any better?
Oh, I love that. So as we close out, I want you to just think about that woman or that man um, who's out there right now listening, and maybe they're in their late 50s, 60s, scared. They're in this exact place where they were before you made your pivot. You're scared, you're feeling stuck, and some part of them feels that it might be too late. What do you want them to know?
Stick with it. For us, I had a really good support system. My husband is a wonderful person and a great person to bounce things off of and discuss with things and help with pros and cons and things like that. And, take advantage of your support system,
Hmm.
but they also need to be the positive support system.
Yes.
You don't want that person who goes, "Oh, that'll never work."
Hmm.
It, but make a plan and there's so many things out there that you can get like I look at library resources. There's LinkedIn Learning. There's all these things that you can enhance your ability in your education
Hmm.
by doing it, and it's free.
Yeah.
um and just hang in there. It is very scary and difficult to be at this age.
Hmm.
I really, because I taught the classes, it turned into a job for me.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel like luck had a lot to do with it, being at the right place at the right time and having people who had confidence in me. And I think that's really important. But look for it. And the worst that can happen is they say no.
Yeah.
And you go on to the next one.
That's right. So, one word, think of one word that you would use that would describe how you feel now. You made that pivot, you believed in yourself, you kept going. What's one word that you would use?
Contentment.
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 I love it. I love it.
I'm relaxed in all kinds of other parts of my life in addition to this. And there's a contentment in that.
Well, Gwen, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your story. What you shared is information that no research paper could really capture. That lived experience of your courage, your grit, I would say that resilience, and now contentment. And that's really all of us. We're seeking that, right? That inner peace. So you chose yourself when others may have said no, or they're trying to rewrite your story. So thank you for sharing your story with us. And for those of that are listening to us, know that this is your story. It's not too late. It's never too late. You are the proof, Miss Gwen, and we thank you. And we thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Contract Podcast. Remember, you can find us on Instagram. You can also check out our YouTube channel and thecontractpodcast.com. Take good care until next time.